Kagovnya there with the latest on that. Let's shift gears to matters politics. Now, President Uhuru Kenyatta yesterday said the country should not be handed over to the distraction squad. Next, we'll be speaking to analyst Arnold Maliba about what the president meant. Let's listen in to what he had to say.
Hata nchi kuna historia. Kulikuwa wale, nilisema wakati nilikuwa kule Sagana, kulikuwa wale ambao walijitolea kwa sababu walikuwa wanaamini. Walijitolea maisha yao, mali yao, na hata uhuru ule ambao walikuwa wanapigania hawakuona. Hawakuona, but they were led by principle. They were led by a cause. They were led by justice. Kukakuja wengine wakachukulia, na hawa pia wakaendelea mpaka taifa ikapata uhuru, na Mwenyezi Mungu akawaonekea na wakaongoza kwa vyeo mbalimbali. Hawa wakaweka pia msingi wao kama wale wa mbele yao ambao hawakuona huo uhuru, wakaweka. Kukakuja vijana wa wakati hiyo, wakina mzee Moi, wakakuja na wakachukulia, na hawa pia wakajenga. Kukakuja wale wengine ambao pia waliweka kosi yao katika hiyo nyumba tunaita Kenya. Mpaka ikakuja marika yetu na tumeweka yetu. Na sisi tutawachilia tuweke wengine wakuja na waongeze, so that our house called Kenya, standing on a firm foundation, continues to grow and prosper. Wenzangu, tusiteleze, tulete demolition squad badala ya wajenzi.
Well, let's now speak to Arnold Maliba on what the president meant by his words. Arnold, many thanks for joining us here on Newsdesk. So the president spoke yesterday, urging Kenyans to be careful when electing leaders to avoid destroying their future. And he says there, and I quote, "I beseech you, don't choose the demolition squad." End of quote. What do you think the president meant by this statement?
Well, the president was literally taking us through the project of national building. And in our case, the national building project is what I would call Enterprise Kenya. And of course, he, in his own words, tried to take us through from the first liberation to the second liberation and where he is today. Now, when you're talking about national building, there are three things that, or other factors that stand out to follow through. Number one is what we call the third sector, or the CSO. That is the capacity of the citizen to be able to organize themselves away from the state or the private sector. The second one is the ability of the state to provide public goods evenly across the country. And the third bit of it is having a medium of communication. Normally it's just a language where at least all of us can understand each other in whatever language we are in. Because normally for a nation is coming, rather bringing people together, people with different origins, people of different histories, culture, religion, but you're bringing them together under one, rather within a boundary, so that they pursue a single goal. So when the president spoke about us not opening up the country to the demolition squad, he was simply talking about that when you're building Enterprise Kenya, or rather when you're talking about national building, there are normally, in our case, there are two threats to national building. Number one is politics of division. And under politics of division, we have got ethnicity, we have got, once in a while, probably at the moment, we should be talking about narratives like the Hustler versus dynasty. That in itself has got a way of dividing the nation and cutting the threads that bring us together. The other bit that can threaten the project, the national building project, is corruption, because corruption then stops the government from being able to provide public goods across the country. So those two, in our case at the moment, those would be the things that can actually demolish the project of national building.
All right. And of course, we have the president essentially warning Kenyans against electing leaders that do more damage than development. But some say that this was an apparent attack on the deputy president, William Ruto, and his Tanga brigade. During his Sagana meeting there, we had the president, for the first time address what we would term as the rock-bottom relationship with his deputy and his allies. What does this signal now moving forward? Because we're essentially seeing the president take off his gloves and attack the deputy president and his allies head-on.
Of course, initially we had a lot of proxy wars between the president and the deputy. We would only hear it from people, or rather look at what was happening between their lieutenants on either side.
Right.
But from where we are, like you have ably said, the gloves are off, and it's a bare-knuckle struggle. You realize that when the president spoke in Sagana the other day, the deputy president answered almost immediately. And that's what I'm thinking yesterday when the president was speaking at the memorial event in Baringo. He then mentioned the issue about respect of leaders, being respectable. In the same speech where he talked about the demolition squad as opposed to the Wajenzi one. So we are at a place where I think yesterday the president was trying to personify the threats to national development. And like I initially said, in our case, there are two threats to national development, or the Enterprise Kenya project. Number one, the politics of division. And I've mentioned two things under the politics of division. That is ethnicity or tribalism. And then, of course, sometimes when you see the sloganeering politics where we are trying to divide people around class, and you have seen people really warn about the hustler versus dynasties narrative. That is a class, whatever way you look at it is actually a class strife or struggle. Mm-hmm. It could break the fiber, or rather the fabric that brings us together as a nation. And then the other bit of it is I spoke about corruption. So when the president spoke yesterday, he spoke about the demolition squad. Demolition squad, primarily those two aspects, corruption and dividing the nation, at the moment, then are the threats to national development or our project of building up Enterprise Kenya. So we are at a place where we are seeing a lot of exchanges and direct engagement between the president and his deputy. Mm-hmm. How that goes, of course, is something that we will have to look at it. But we can see that his people on either side, especially the president's side, are trying to see if they can actually probably get rid of the deputy president. Right. How also that project goes is something that we need to look at.
Right. So very briefly, perhaps, Maliba, I mean, when you talk about politics of division, the hustler versus dynasty narrative, especially when it comes to championing for the BBI within the Mount Kenya region, has been the focus here. The president in Sagana saying he did not make any promise to his deputy about supporting him in 2022. What could this likely do to the deputy's ambitions and forays that he is making in the Mount Kenya region?
Well, the president comes out and says that he didn't make any promises to his deputy. He said he will not support anyone. Even though there are, let me just say that there is evidence or some clips recorded in the past that try to suggest that he had made a promise to somebody else. But he's gone ahead, and number one, you realize that he's warning people against electing, or actually in the same speech, or rather in the same line of saying that he has not promised anybody leadership or supporting anyone. He's then warning the nation and even warning Mount Kenya people to avoid people who might want to come in through the back door, or also people who might want to divide them. So whatever way you want to look at this, he's speaking about one person. And simply, this is the person of the deputy president, and he's talking about him doing the politics of division. And like I've also mentioned, without necessarily probably pointing out something else, I've said that in our case as a nation, only two factors threaten the project of national development or how we build up Enterprise Kenya. That is corruption. that stops the government from, or rather the state from being able to provide public goods across the country equitably. And then the politics of division.
Right.
And we've mentioned about class politics. So from what happens to the DP in Mount Kenya, I'm thinking the president is trying to win Mount Kenya off the deputy president, because you realize he has got a little bit of traction. After the Sagana 3 meeting, you can actually see that there's been a little bit of change, and a few people are changing their mind about BBI.
Right. Many thanks, Arnold.